How long was that shoot? I watched it, by the way, and it was excellent. I loved how there was heart in it, and I know it was based on something that you kind of experienced yourself in a waiting room somewhere.
That's true. I experienced the car wash. I got the idea for it because I was sitting in a car wash one day, and one elderly lady looked over at me and said one brief sentence about loneliness, how she was just lonely and wanted someone to talk to. And we didn't really go much past that, but that stuck in the back of my head while I was writing the screenplay. And we actually shot the car wash in 2 6-hour days, which was really intense because it's very dialogue driven, almost like a one-act play. And to do that, it was very important to be very efficient and quick, because with Edith, we had a very limited amount of time to work with her, and we also had 10 pages of script to go through. And something that's dialogue driven, it's very much about the performance and how you block the performers to get the dialogue maximized for the viewer. And so that probably was the most challenging thing, working with a 12-hour shooting period.
So when you say blocking, I know she was sitting down in, I believe, all of the film, right? So how are you figuring out things around that, just someone that's sitting in one spot?
Sure. Well, working with my cinematographer on that project, who was also a college-age student like myself, this was the most challenging thing we'd ever done, because I thought as a college student when I was writing the screenplay, some of my peers were writing projects that were way too ambitious for what we had the capacity to do. They were writing scenes that had visual effects, and they were doing things that had action sequences. And I felt like, as a director at a college age, that I did not have the resources or capacity to direct something like that. So to do something character-driven, something that was someone sitting down, someone in a contained space, I thought that I had a better opportunity to make something that would work better at that time in my career. So the way we blocked it, I was trying to figure out how can we make this compelling from the standpoint of the dialogue, because one of my favorite filmmakers is Sidney Lumet, who directed my favorite film, Network, and I think about that film a lot when I'm looking at compositions of scenes, how to set up a scene in a way that motivates the dialogue and the performance. And so in the car wash, I wanted to start wide and get closer and closer and closer and closer as the film got more intimate, because I thought that would be a way to better communicate what was going on with the character. And so in doing that, it enabled us to have a simpler process to maximize our shooting schedule, but also to divide and block out the script in a way that made sense dramatically.
So $1,000, and that's what it took to take for her 2 days being there. Was that your own money?
That was my own money.
Wow.
In the early days, I self-financed a lot of my work. I would do weddings. I did a children's audiobook. I did anything I could find to finance the projects I wanted to work on. So I could buy a camera or buy a microphone. Now, it's different now. This was like 2006 and to like 2007. Now you have smartphones that can shoot 2K or 3K with certain apps. But we didn't have that back in the early days of the 2000s. We had to buy expensive DV cameras or cheap DV cameras that didn't have very good quality, and then you'd have to buy the $1,000 Final Cut Pro system to work with it and the laptop that could handle it. It's a lot more expensive then, and so I just would find any way I could to buy those pieces of equipment and to buy those pieces of software, so as my storytelling developed, that I could do better things.